Hi, friends. Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm your host, Josh Horton. It's officially 2026, and I'm excited to be back again in person this spring in Seattle, April 30th through May 2nd, for our third annual Creative Works West Conference. 3 days designed to empower your creative work and career. The price is only $3.99 for individuals and $1.99 for students. Our starting lineup has been posted on our website, and tickets are on sale now. Event link is in the show notes. Today, I'm talking with designer, entrepreneur, and studio owner Austin Dunbar, the principal of Durham Studio and partner of Wenzel Distillery. He's built multiple businesses, long-term client relationships, and a studio that's staying in business through some of the wildest years this industry has ever seen. We start with what it actually feels like to be a creative right now, the days you wake up on top of the mountain and the days you feel like you've been punched in the gut. Austin shares why he thinks the game isn't just about talent anymore. It's about your nervous system, how you handle the highs, the lows, and the fact that there's almost no middle ground left. Austin opens up about one of the hardest seasons of his life: surgeries, a long-time employee leaving, a serious injury, multiple car accidents, and trying to keep a business and a family moving through all of it. We talk about what it takes to stay grounded, from movement and acupuncture to presence, gratitude, and being a dad who actually shows up. From there, we zoom out into the state of the industry. We talk about AI, the disappearing middle, and why relationships will outlast any portfolio. We talk about design as a trade, not a trend. Why there are too many of us chasing the cool factor and not enough people putting in the hours to build real craft, real trust, and long-term retainers instead of one-night stand projects. We also get into his distillery and other businesses, why he's obsessed with hospitality, building environments, not just case studies, and what it looks like to run a we economy instead of a me economy in a time when everyone's trying to scale as fast as possible. If you're feeling fried, questioning your path, or wondering how to build something more resilient than a social feed, this one's for you. Before we get into it, a quick note. At the moment, the State of the Union and the Creative Workers Union are completely self-funded. No ads, no sponsor. It's just us putting the work in to get these conversations out to you. If you enjoy this podcast, consider giving $5 a week to support the editing and production of the show. That's about the price of a coffee, and it helps us keep episodes coming and enables us to grow our season schedule. If $5 a week isn't doable, a one-time donation of any amount still makes a big difference. You can support the show at creativeworks.co/podcast. The link is in the show notes. All right, let's jump in. I don't know if this happens for you, but like some days I start off at the top of the mountain, and then for no good reason, I just feel like someone punched me in the emotional gut or punched me in the gut. And then I came back and just learned that a friend who owns a studio that's folding, and again, for good reason, and I think it's a good thing ultimately. But it's just I'm having, and I talked to people like from Mattel yesterday, and then like some folks that were at Starbucks. And or these folks were at Mattel, and then some folks from Starbucks. But it just like, it's like not doom and gloom, but just not good stuff happening everywhere. And then I feel like sometimes I get stuck in that mode where I can't see the other side of that.
I feel like nowadays it is not how good of a graphic designer you are, it's how strong your central nervous system is. Because everyone is so fucking shot, dude. And right. I don't care how green the grass is, like you ain't cutting it because you're trying to stack it because you just don't know what you don't know. You don't know what the future is going to hold. And I have so many conversations of kind of like what you just said. Like last week I was in Missouri in the middle of nowhere for a completely different business that I own. And I was on the phone for half an hour on a call with the CEO of a gigantic company out of San Francisco that everyone knows. It was a 30-minute conversation. At the end of the conversation, we kind of had to have a little bit of a come to Christ from stuff kind of earlier this year, and just like recenter so we can refocus for next year, right? They fired their whole team, and then they're restructuring. How does Durham fit into this conversation? A, B, C, and D. Well, I say all that to say at the end of this conversation, I was like, yo, dude, I was like, hey, real quick, I know we're about to get off the call. I was like, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? And he paused and he said, no one ever asked me that. And I laughed because I said, fuck, no one asked me either. That's why I'm asking you. And we had this kind of, you know what I mean? Like, no one gives a shit. It's like, I'm in the business of dance monkey dance. Like, no one's like, and I'm not woe is me either. But
no, I know. No, this is good. Like, this is, people need to hear this shit.
But like, that's the stuff that matters. And I think, you know, if we're in the business of the robots taking your jobs, the one thing they can't take is your relationships. And you better do a damn good job of doubling down on that kind of stuff and checking in on people and making sure the human side of the creativity coin is present, because on the other side is AI and robots and cannibalism. And we're in the business of nice to have, not necessities. So the first thing that's going to get killed is the marketing budget. Sure. You got to make sure you're in good graces and a good person with the people you're doing work for. That is more important in 2026 and beyond than how kick-ass your portfolio or that project is. Opinion of one. I just think
dude, that's real.
The economy of creativity as we move forward. Like, I don't give a shit about someone's portfolio or the cool kick-ass project they're working on. They probably got paid a little bit of money so someone can make a shit pot of money. But it's how you it's how you kind of treat the client for them to call you back. So we're not doing one night stands and just like one-off projects, because no one can build a portfolio in terms of a career based off of a series of one-off projects.
All right, I think we're going to end the podcast.
Thanks. That's my TED Talk. I really think it is just the I think, and you're asking this without asking this, but I really think the world and culture that we're in now from a creativity standpoint, i.e. like just graphic design in general, I'm not going to speak on behalf of architects, but it's, if Darwin's theory of evolution is the survival of the strongest, I really think that applies to the central nervous system and how you can keep your brevity and breath, how you can stay calm, how you can kind of ride the ebbs and flows, because the highs are high and the lows are lower. There's no mid ground anymore. It's just like, you just said it. You wake up, you're charged. I'm going to go kick ass. I'm going to go do all this stuff during the day. I went to this coffee shop. I had a good talk with Mattel, A, B, C, and D. Then I got a phone call out of nowhere. Someone's going tits up on a business that I didn't expect. And then you just like, everything just flips. There's no middle ground. And your central nervous system can't. Like, we're in the service-based industry, but we're not CPAs that I just got off the call with that always just sucks. We're not either. It's just, maybe that's why I'm coming in so hot, because I was like, what is this hour-long conversation for? What are we doing? We didn't solve anything, but completely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's keep going on this thread. I got so much that I want to talk about, but let's keep going on this, because I feel like it just warrants it. So in your life, what are the things that you do to keep yourself kind of emotionally grounded, nerves of steel, whatever it is? I mean, beyond some of the things, I want to move beyond, once you tell me this, I want to move to performance culture next.
Yeah.
Because that's something I'm seeing a lot of lately.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about, but what are you doing kind of in your daily, or, I mean, what are you learning? Again, I'm assuming you're not perfect at it, right? So like, what are you doing that helps you kind of keep a straight face, right, in the midst of all this shit?
Yeah. So the past 6 months has been like pretty terrible personally. Like, I'm still married. Like, Ashley's my best friend. Like, I have all 3 of my daughters. But but a lot of really bad shit happened. Like, she had a surgery that went sideways back in July, and that's kind of when everything just went boom. And then I had an employee that was like a really good friend of mine for the past close to 20 years. Decided it was time to go, which is okay. Everyone has their own cycle. And then a week, 4 days later, I like literally cut my finger off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then a week later, my wife got in a terrible car accident where she got, she got T-boned, and her car flipped 3 times on the way to the emergency room, taking our oldest daughter to the hospital because we thought she was having a stroke. And then she ended up having to have her appendix taken out. I'm like riding in an ambulance on my mother's 60th birthday with my daughter. That's not cool. And then 2 weeks later, she gets in another accident. So we had 2 total cars in 2 weeks, blah, 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 blah. I own this business. I own some other businesses. And it's like, how do you keep all the plates spinning on sticks? Going back to that dance monkey dance. It's like, sometimes I don't want to dance. and I could feel it. Like I could feel my body just completely breaking down. And, I'm in the business of making sure other people feel better. You know what I
Right.
mean? And that's how you get a paycheck. And I've never really taken time away. And so this was kind of the first year we're actually going to take a little bit of tiny time away, just because one, we didn't have cars, and two, I had to make sure of my wife, and I had to be like the dad and transport everyone, this, that, and the other. And so I kind of didn't do the best job. But the things I do are kind of what a lot of other people do. I try to work out. I used to run a lot more than I do now. That helps me. My biggest thing that I love the most, and I think this is probably me growing up overseas, is acupuncture for me completely just rejigs my brain. Like I could go there and just be like dirty ass laundry, and I come back and I just like went to the dry cleaners and I feel like fit and fresh.
Explain it. Explain kind of what it does for you.
Your central nervous system is basically a neurological highway, right? I'm about to rip a big old just like bong. So your body is an actual battery, okay? And sometimes in your car, you don't have to. There's parts in your car that are broken down, right? And you can target these pressure points to basically remove either dead energy, stalled energy. My biggest thing is stress energy. And I learned that I store all of my stress in my liver and kidneys, which is completely fun. And other people have like maybe they store it in their spleen or they store it in their heart or whatever the case may be. And so historically, I would always go every 6 weeks to go get acupuncture. And because it just would completely rejig my body, and like you literally feel the electricity moving through you and just like regenerating you. And it's not like you don't like walk out. It's not like an IV bag drip, which I also do. It's not, but it just kind of like takes the fog off a little bit, and you just don't feel as like run down. And I feel like now, especially like with running business, whether it's creative or any business in general, every day you get on, the thought leaders worldwide network of LinkedIn or any other, dude, yeah, what a wasteland, or anything else. Like it's like, oh, fill in the blank company / 2,000% of their employees, or, oh, this, that, and the other. Like it's coming from all sides. And I think the only thing at the end of the day that people can control are themselves. And I've historically done a really shitty job at like keeping the temple clean, if you will. So I'm trying to do a better job at that. And that goes to like self-talk, because when like shit goes tits up, like I'm like real quick to be like, fuck this, fuck that, this is happening. And I'm not Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man, but I like play backwards versus like being in the present, or I think forward and I get super scared. So I think practicing just like mindfulness and being present in the moment, like right now, all I'm doing is thinking about talking to you. I'm not thinking about the meeting I have in an hour, or what I just talked about to the CPAs that didn't tell me dick.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to practice about being here. And that also applies to being a dad. My girls keep me pretty grounded. I'm just dad, and so I just cut up with them. And so I think spending more time with them too, just because there was a long time in my career I was kind of married to the game versus married to the family. Not that I was a bad dad or a bad husband per se, but like,
sure,
this phone rang. I was like, I gotta go, and then I would leave said soccer game or horses or working on birthday parties and stuff like that, because I didn't know where our next paycheck was going to come from.
Totally, man. Well, you unpacked a lot there. Kind of moving on to my train of thought, like, we just, well, one of the things I would say, and I think this is really interesting, but I read an article in the last month that talked about kind of quantum physics. I know this is going to get a little crazy.
Yeah, we'll keep the bong in the mouth. Keep going.
Right. So basically they were just talking about the fact that like what you're doing right now could alter past events, which is really interesting to think about. And then also that it affects future events, obviously too. But I think one of the things that was one of the things that kind of unhooked something for me, where I was starting to think about the power of kind of like positivity and kind of the way you move through the world. Right. And especially right now, I mean, it's so much easier to be critical, to be angry, to be, just kind of live in a negative headspace. And one of the things that that I think at some point would have seemed kind of new age to my kind of evangelical
Sure.
upbringing
Sure.
would be, just keeping it a positive mental attitude.
Yep.
And
EMA
then,
line.
yeah, exactly. But the, instead of being punk rock, I would just thought that it was weak or whatever. But anyway, some friends of mine, a friend of mine in particular, one of my best friends, basically, we're just talking about this a lot and just, waking up every day, and you just hear it everywhere. After I kind of like unlocked this kind of like positive thing, I started hearing it articulated in like probably 20 other different versions of saying the same thing in podcasts and in articles and things like that. And so there's something to kind of keeping, a positive mindset to what's going on around you, even in the midst of a lot of things. And again, I'm hopping onto you kind of raw, hopping onto this podcast fairly raw. But the question that goes through my mind when I'm thinking about these things is like, how can you basically have a positive headspace without ignoring like things that could keep you out of trouble, whether it's like financially with your family or whatever it is, because to act like nothing's going on, I think at times could be a little, ignorance or reckless, and so anyway, I know that that's something that I'm learning in my life too, is just to wake up every day and say to myself, when I'm sitting there in bed before, I've tried to get out of my bed without my back going out, basically just like, hey, today's going to be a great day. Today is going to be a day where I get X, Y, and Z done. And at the end of the day, if I get X, Y, and Z done, that's a great day. If I get anything else done, that's amazing. Like just trying to, in these times, have kind of that positive mental outlook. And then again, I heard this on a podcast. Well, maybe there's something to this. If I practice this long enough, has it changed things? And I will say it does change things, but at the same time, I still get punched in the heart, from time to time.
So I think in my experience, and I've actually said this publicly, my wife knows this. I probably said this in the shop. Back to that kind of like PMA kind of attitude. To me, like if the universe is a mirror and I feel like shit, I'm not going to go sell 6 figures worth of work this week.
Totally.
On the flip side of that, I call it vibing high. If I'm vibing high, not literally like ripping a bong high, but just like energetically high. I don't rip bong, I don't get high, but if energetically I'm high and I feel good about myself and everything else, opportunity just attracts opportunity. And I think it does. Opportunities attract opportunity. I think opportunity attracts the positive to a positive and a negative to a negative. You know what I mean? And sometimes life is really hard, and dude, it is so easy to go in the black than it is in the white. It's just. Right. And it's a lot easier to live there. And I've, at times when I've been in the black for seasons, this year was kind of one of those, more so than a lot of other previous years. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and everything was a trauma response, right? So Ashley would call me, post all the shit. And I'm like, hello, are you okay? Is everything okay? Like I would have like a panic attack, which is not like me. It's not like her. It's just like, victim of circumstance, right? And it took a little while to kind of thaw out of that kind of stuff. But no matter what, on the personal side, my wife's just leaving the studio right now. No matter what on the personal side, like life could be like complete shit personally. And if I bring an ounce of that to the business, it almost magnifies it like 10x. And then we're not getting new work. We're not getting new clients, or client revisions are like 50 times versus 5. And it's just like, what is going on? And you kind of live in this like self-spiral tornado, if you will. And sometimes, as hokey as it sounds, but like just gut checking yourself and being like, okay, what can I do just to make the switch flip? Because it's on me. It's not on other people. All we have is ourselves. Like, what can I do mentally to be like, okay, I got to check out of this, and hopefully something good will come of it. Like I've had days where I've come into work where I'm on the backside of that, coming out of the black, if you will. And I've literally come and sat to work and I'm like, today we're going to get some client value, X amount of money is going to happen today. I just think it's going to happen, and I'll be damned. And I'll say it publicly. I'm like, I fucking was driving into work this morning, and I was talking out loud that something had to fucking happen. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, and I'm not special. No one is. But I do think it's just that universal mirror. And if you're putting your best foot forward and kind of having great intentions, I think that's reflected back. And it doesn't have to be monetarily. It doesn't have to be contractually. It could be the vibes in the studio. It could be, me feeling like a better dad to my kids, or a better husband to my wife, or a better friend to my friends. It's not all, it doesn't have to be transactional. A lot of it's kind of just smaller stuff that just stack up.
I know but what is it about our upbringing or about society that kind of, frowns on that? I don't know what that is. Like growing up again, that self-help section was like a section that like my parents didn't want me to go to in the store.
How to Live for Dummies or whatever.
Yeah. Like, but there's, I think at this point, there's probably science behind this, positive mental attitude, but there's also just like a lot of things that I feel like we're discovering now because we've been able to take the blinders off for a minute, to like really kind of assess like how your behavior impacts the world around you. And so anyway, I guess at the end of the day, it's hard, and you've, outlined or articulated a lot of ways that you kind of stay in it. And I think the other thing too, for me at least, is always, but really trying to remember to be grateful, right? Like practicing gratefulness. Sure. And what I mean by the practice is like, not all the time are you feeling grateful, but you've got to really just kind of take a few steps back and think about the things that are really simple. Like the fact that you woke up, your kids, we've gone through some stuff recently with insurance and like, but my kids can still go. Yeah, you've got it too. But my kids can still go to the doctor and I can still afford to pay that bill. And like, there's all these things that are happening, and yet we're making it we make it to the other side of that. We're still having Christmas. I mean, there's a lot of things that like, that just, it's good to be grateful for, even, if they're not a new truck or I always talk about this fucking truck. Like in my mind, the one day when I make it, I'm going to get like a brand new sorry, I'm cussing.
What do you want?
My pinnacle truck right now is a black Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, because it comes with all the stuff. But that truck is $70,000 now. There's no way that I'll ever have that truck. So, in some weird way, I feel like I'm measuring myself up to that truck, and that is just, honestly, it's a thing that I think the practice as of late is letting that go. Right. It doesn't mean that I won't ever have a truck or something that I'm happy with, or a vehicle, but right now I have a vehicle that works, even though the transmission is about to go out. Like I have a vehicle that works, and then I get to point A to point B. My kids don't really care, I don't think, at the end of the day. Like any of the like stigma that I think is going on doesn't really exist. Like I'm not worried about impressing anyone in my car. So anyway, it's just practicing gratefulness for me, I think, has been really, really helpful. And I've never considered myself like a shitty person or someone who wasn't ungrateful, or that was ungrateful. But I learned kind of mentally, my mind was always in the future. It was always to things that I hadn't achieved yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's
versus like being present, like you're saying, and like being really grateful for what I have right now. And I think that's been huge.
Being present is almost impossible. It's super hard, especially if you're drinking caffeine, especially we're like, name your drug of choice, right?
Sure.
Like it is, escapism is real, even if it's socially acceptable. And that I think the futurism and the future thoughts, the majority of my brain's lived in the future, that my short-term memory is so fucking smoked out. I don't remember shit. I couldn't tell you what I wore yesterday. Like, I just can't. And my brain is so filled with, and historically it's been so filled with stuff that I have to do tomorrow, or the day after, or the week after, or like right now it's the end of the year. So we're going through the whole business from January 12/31 and just like, oh shit, like, what am I going to do the next 20 days? That's going to, blah, 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 blah. But, yeah. And like, I don't know. I feel like having honest conversations with people. Cause a lot of people, whether it's on the internet or face to face, they're like, there's a little bit of flex daddy going on. And they're like, no, man, I'm cool. Like, we just got that thing on the dial. Like, I don't give a shit. We just got this award. I don't care. Whatever the case may be. Like, it's like, no, man, how are you doing? I don't give a fuck about what you're doing. How are you doing? Because I know you ain't doing good. And your central nervous system is shot. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. I can see it in your eyes. And I'm asking you because I want you to ask me. And I think that gratefulness that you're talking about, I think is external, but sometimes you need to have it come back internal from someone external as well. Because I akin it to doing work for clients. Like, clients pay us because they're inside of the fence. We have the perspective to be outside the fence. And they're like, hey, can you help me get out of the fence? It's like, we're outside, we're looking in. This is the maze. This is how you get out of here. High five. Hell yeah. You paid us a little bit of money. You're going to make a lot of money. Go on. We're going to go to another backyard and help those people out. Sometimes when I'm stuck in the middle of my own fence, I don't have someone to come in. It's not my wife, who's, a stud, love her to death. But sometimes she's like my verbal punching bag for just life's just chaos, right? And I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm not like, I'm just like, I'm a roadie, right? I'm just kind of like talking in a circle. I'm like talking to myself, but she's around, so she has to take all the stray bullets. But but yeah, man, I really do think, like, kind of circling back to what we talked about, I just think it's the game now is not how good of a designer you are and what your logo bingo card looks like on your website in terms of who you're working for. The game is just different. And I think it's more of a game of heart than it is of the head and creativity. And it's relational currency over monetary currency to a degree. Everyone needs money to stay open, of course, but you're only going to be making money by people that trust you and appreciate what you do. And if that doesn't exist, then you don't have a job and the robots just took it. You know what I mean? So I think that is just that's my reality. That's kind of how I'm framing a lot of things, and how I'm like reframing some of the structure in the studio, because it used to be, how cool is that typography? How cool is that award? How cool is that conference you got to talk at? How cool is that? How cool is that? How cool is that? And the right now, the projects that are cool aren't cool, because they're the people that like respect you, and it's like work for the meal and not work for the real. It's the work that's putting food on everyone's tables and all the employees' tables. It's not going to get all the hearts and thumbs ups and hell yeahs on Instagram. And it's stuff that's keeping the lights on and keeping people insatiated and actually creative and doing good work for good people. And then they call us again. So like, we're going on a client right now that we just signed, they're signing 10 years of retainer. They've been a client for 10 years. Yeah, bro. I would challenge anyone on the internet for a 10-year retainer. And they're a gazillion dollar client, like unheard of. And you're not really going to see it because it does, you know what I mean? It keeps us doing what we have to do, and that's earned, not given. And so I just make sure we kind of do a good job, and I do a good job of being a good person for the right people. So they just call our number back. You know what I mean? But then on the other side of that coin, I got to be a good person to myself too. And I historically was a real shit bag to myself, and I just took everything out on me.
One of the things that I keep thinking about is kind of like how my perspective has shifted, or what it's stayed the same since I got into this business. And you and I know that, I had opportunities when I was a lot younger to do some really cool work, but I think
you defined design career, brother. You got me into it.
What I set out to do, honestly, at the end of the day, was just make an honest living. And I know that sounds crazy.
No.
But because of maybe some of the stuff that I did when I was younger. But before that, I literally just wanted to wake up, go to a place that did cool things and make things, and then go home and like have a life with a family, right?
Sure.
At the end of the day, my focus was not on the money. It wasn't on a truck or a house or whatever, whatever things that you kind of set in front of yourself. It was just to make an honest living, right? Like one where I could pay my bills,
Yep.
keep my, pay for my family's health care, that sort of thing. And I feel like we've lost sight of that. And I think what we're getting ready to do, honestly, in a lot of ways, is like kind of a level set, or a level check, or whatever the phrase is there. But basically, like, I think things are going to revert to people making it more of an honest living these days, right? Versus kind of like living this ideal, rock star designer career. I think there are going to be fewer rock star designers.
Cool.
And I think you'll see the people that are rock star designers that are really people who do the work, who aren't influencers, who aren't on LinkedIn all the time, who aren't posturing themselves, but they're literally committing themselves to work and relationship in ways that like take care of their clients first.
Yep.
And again, that's an honest living. Then that money or reward or whatever will come back to you. And that's the transaction at the end of the day, instead of like, kind of like, am I going to get, a book written about me, or am I going to get invited to speak at this conference? Or, I'm kind of in the process, right? Well, I'm in the process of programming for Creative Works West.
Sure.
And so it's speakers and workshop leaders and things like that. And we've had to politely just say no to some folks that like, kind of, they're it just doesn't make sense to them anymore to like leave their family and things behind.
Sure.
For the amount of money we can pay them to come lead. Right.
Sure.
And, but there was a time when you could just be like you could fudge a little bit on the numbers and like give them a little bit more, or pay for 2 hotel rooms for 2 people and things like that. And I don't know, man. Like, I feel like we're just getting back to this kind of a level set of like, the people that are going to be in this career long-term are going to be people who actually do really amazing work.
Yep.
Versus those that are, have some other thing in mind, whether it's fame or they're letting their ego kind of run things or whatever. Like, I feel like I'm getting all over the place, but I just kind of feel like there are people out there that are performing.
Yep.
And there are people that are out there doing the work. And I think we're going to go through a shift in this industry that will see the people that are doing, the work and committed to the craft, if you will, coming out on the other side of that. And the ones that were performing and, really trying to go after kind of like a lifestyle, or they're pursuing something else other than really their clients' best interest.
Yep.
It's going to be really tough anyway.
Yeah, no, I think to your point, like to ladder up to that, I think it's going to turn more into a trade than a trend. And I think that there's, transparently speaking, I think there's too many fucking of us to be honest.
Yes. Good. I'm glad you said that.
I think creative cannibalism should be a thing. And if robots are going to take your jobs, like they can take a handful of people's jobs. There's just
totally,
we're in the nice to have, not necessity business, like I made mention. And like,
yep. That's so true.
We have too many people that I think, one, that graphic design is air quote cool. It was probably the edgiest degree that they could get away with to tell their parents, I'm going to go to school and study graphic design. And then they get out and it's just, and I'm not talking for everyone, but it's just, it's really difficult. And I think historically, I would always say graphic design is a young man's game. Like you talked about when you were younger, I'm 38 years old. Like I can't stay up for 96 hours and design my eyes off anymore. Like I just can't do it.
Sure.
But the young man's game, young people's game, will be politically correct. They don't want to do the work either, which is crazy. So to me, it's not trade, it's trend. You thought it was cool and kick ass and fun and whatever other adjective you want to put in, but you're not putting your 10,000 hours in on the trade and the craft, but you're going to spend 10,000 hours looking at TikTok and bullshit and talking about everything else. And those things are not copacetic. Like, this is a ass in the seat business, and you have to learn trial by fire, because we're in the business of personal interpretation of what's good and bad. We're not selling self-portraits and at a flea market and asking people to, like, hey, do you want me to paint your dog? Like, that's not what we're doing. Like, we're in the business of, like, if someone really likes red and the next day they're like, oh, actually I woke up, I hate red, I love green, and you have to change everything. You can't burn the business down because you have to make that damn change. That person changed their mind, who's paying their money for you to work on that. And a lot of people, cognitive, emotional capabilities, can't fucking handle that. And it's like, that is the game, period, dot. So that's the trade. It's not the trend. That's the trade. So I completely support creative cannibalization, make creative cannibalization great again. I don't know. Like, I just think there's too many of us. I just think
there is.
I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that in a I wish higher education did a better job at setting people up for reality. Those that do, those that don't teach, and our teachers aren't doers. And they get into the real world and they're fucked.
Yes. Well, you just touched on something where I was going. So when I started out, I had to print out everything that I'd done up to that point. And I had to put it in a binder or a nice, big, large portfolio, and then go take that to the college here and say, hey, will you let me into your design school? Right. Sure. And they were like, yeah, this is great. And I'd already worked at a record label. So, like, I already had some stuff that was cool, or I had promise is probably the best thing. And this was the University of Memphis. This wasn't SCAD. And so they let me into the program, but the gist of it was there weren't enough seats for everyone to be in the program. And so they had to look at these portfolios to let people in and to know who was going to be more worth their time. Right. And shortly there, this is like the early 2000s, like shortly thereafter, we entered this thing where, like, for the cool factor, or really honestly to make as much money as possible, almost every liberal arts college, university in the country had to create a graphic design program, because that's what everyone wanted for an education. Like you're saying, it was the cool thing to do, and that's what the kids wanted to do.
Yep.
But I guess what I'm getting at is, like, higher education, I think, has a lot of blame in this, because they've charged these kids or these young people with
out the nose,
a lot of debt. And they've told them all that there is a place for you in the market. Yep. And then if you go to SCAD or RISD or Yale or something like that, it's like, not only is there a place for you in the market, but there's like a $200,000, $120,000 job for you at Facebook, whatever startup company USA. Right. And I don't think that really exists either. No. Not these days. And so I feel like, and so I know a lot of educators, and I've talked to them about this dynamic and what's going on. It's brutal, man. It is very brutal. And people are at fault for this, but I think the only thing, I mean, we can't wallow around in this, right? Like, you've got to find a way to basically just turn the page. And what I'm trying to help young designers understand is, like, hey, you've got to really care about this profession.
Yeah.
Historically, the only people who were in this business were people who had craft and who knew what they were doing. That was it.
Yeah. Like, right? It's not like, oh, hey, hold on, do you like this logo here? And they just, like, banged it on Canva or wherever the fuck it is. You know what I mean? Like, my 11-year-old daughter wants to start a hoodie. This has nothing to do with anything, but it kind of does. Wants to start a hoodie company, right? And so her name's Stella. She rolls. And so she said, hey, Dad, I want to start this hoodie company called Honey, H-O-N-E, Honey Hoods, whatever, right? And Mom said to ask you, she said it was okay. And I'm like, sure, whatever you want to do. You're 11, cool, whatever. So then she starts sending me all these fucking logos that look obviously garbage, right? And so, but she's just banging them out. and putting them on hoodies, and they're on people and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, damn. Well, I did something and I sent it over to her, and she straight up said, the hoodie's cool. I don't like the logo. That's not my aesthetic.
Oh,
And
nice.
I was like, hell yeah. But
Definitely
I say that
daughter.
story because it's going to what it's so disposable now. Right. And it's so like kind of like everyone does it. I think some of the I don't want to say the magic's gone, but I do think that. I think some of the romanticism of being a creative is a little bit lost, and it seems so much more just like you're lugging around, just like trying to get through versus like really feeling the spark of inspiration and motivation to do really great things for really great people.
I think the reverence for the craft is gone, right? Because
and that's a better segue. Like, yeah, instead of me being like, hey, here's 3 logos, it took a day, whatever the case may be, she's just banging it on the phone on the Blink app, and it's just like, to any Joe Schmo, they're like, oh yeah, that looks believable. You know, they don't know craft, they don't know context, they don't know creativity. Most people don't. That's why people like copy over they like graphic design and creativity, because they know what words are. They don't know what logos and visuals are. So if you compare words with really kick-ass, if you compare 70% killer words with 30% killer visuals, it's a banger. If it's 70% killer visuals and 30% words, you're like, I don't know what am I looking at? It's just like, people's brains aren't wired that way. And that's why the studio's so hell-bent on copy. We've always been. But yeah, and there's so many tools that are disposable. Creatives put their nose up at things like Canva or anything fucking Adobe comes out every other week. There's 400 product package of things. And there just seems to be this just disposable nature of it. And everything's supposed to be designed right now in the time, and nothing's considered and thought to be timeless. And like, I hate graphic design trends. I hate things that are designed at the time. I'd rather things be timeless. And that just goes back to craft, all the stuff from the 60s for the most part is still here. And all the stuff from 2025 is going to be gone next year.
Quick pause. One of the biggest themes in this conversation with Austin is simple. Your work can't be healthier than you are. Talent matters, but your relationships and your nervous system matter more, especially in a season where budgets are tight, timelines are wild, and everyone feels stretched. That's why we're building the Creative Workers Union, to give you real community, honest conversations like this one, and practical ways to build a creative life that's sustainable, not just impressive on paper. State of the Union is part of that work, and it's self-funded. If these episodes are helping you navigate your own path, please consider supporting the show. Even $5 a week or a one-time gift at creativeworks.co/podcast helps us pay for editing, keeping the podcast ad-free, and saying yes to more conversations like this. If this episode is hitting home, send it to one person who needs to hear it. A friend who's struggling, someone burnt out on client work, or a creative who just needs to know that they're not the only one feeling this. It helps more than you know. You can also stay in the loop by signing up for our newsletter and checking out the upcoming Creative Workers Union workshops and events, all linked in the show notes. All right, back to Austin. One of the things that we haven't really talked about much lately is that you have your own, I'm sure you said companies, but one of the things that I know that you have aside from Durham Studio is your distillery, your whiskey label. I would love for you to tell me more about that. And then also,
proud sponsor of today's, talking bullshit and hangout. Here's this.
Yeah, man. So I would love to know. Yeah, that's great, man. So one of the things that I say a lot, and I think it should be a part of almost every, at least studio owner, freelancer's career, is like, hey, moving from doing client work into doing your own work or your own brand or your own business, right? And you've done that. I mean, a distillery is no small thing. So I'd love to know kind of how that came to be. And then also just, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about like what makes Austin a good person for that. Maybe it's not, I don't know. a good fit for that, because I want to live in a world where the next coffee shop that I go to, or the next whatever, is not some corporate, experience, but it's
Sure.
someone with a lot of conviction for coffee or whatever came up with, where either was a creative themselves or worked with really amazing creative talent and put it into this world. Because I think that experience in itself will be so much better than, what we're being fed by corporate.
Yeah. So I think for me, in a lot of my whole career is accidental. Like it is not, I've never had one business plan. I own 5 companies. I've never owned,
Good grief. What are those companies?
so I own a studio. I own a distillery. I own a solar battery company out of Missouri. And then I own
Good God.
2 different like properties under different LLCs. And none of that's to be like flex daddy at all. Like all of that, I'm saying that to say like I fumbled through all of it, including graphic design to a degree. So I think for me, what ended up happening was I got, historically speaking, the studio worked in a lot of spirits and beverage and beer and stuff like that. So I knew a lot in terms of just like what the creative aspect of it was. That age old saying, your net worth is your network, is very true. The kids don't even know what that means, but you got to grow up and kind of learn that. I'm friends with some people that we ended up getting in business with. A gentleman bought a building. He was going to put a burger restaurant in there. This is 2019. I'll make this super quick. We were at his bar that he owned. We were on our 5th Manhattan, and there was some whiskey roots to the building. And I said, why don't you do something with whiskey? And he leaned in and he slapped me on the cheek 3 times. He said, I'll do it if you do it. Talk is cheap. And I said, sounds good. June of 2020, he called me. He said, hey, we're opening this motherfucker up. Pony up. And I was like, I was outside, dude, walking in a tiny circle in my front yard. Cause this is like the height of COVID. Like you didn't even know if you can I was looking up how much it was to run 8 miles in my backyard. I like mapped my backyard because I didn't think you can go outside and run blah, 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 blah. So we opened this business. There's a building pre-prohibition called the Wenzel building, this guy named Henry Wenzel. And it was a rectifier. What a rectifier is a place that would buy whiskey and blend its own whiskey. He would sell it to his bars and restaurants. So we did the same thing. So we bought some barrels. We started the company on a shoestring budget. And then it kind of just started blowing up. And what's interesting, the dichotomy of design and service base versus bourbon and product base is so interesting, because I've always been in like offices and businesses and Zooms with like C-suite people and very like influential people and like decision makers, this, that, and the other. When I introduce myself, I'm like, oh yeah, my name's Austin Dunbar. I own a design studio called Durham. Everyone's, oh, cool, whatever. And then someone will say, oh, and he owns a distillery. And you're like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, no one gives a shit about graphic design. Like, what's in it for them? Like, stuff like this is in it for them. So we ended up, the studio does all the graphic design for it. So if it looks bad, you got someone to blame. But it was one of those things that was just so circumstantial and wasn't supposed to happen. And it snowballed. We started winning world awards and big awards, and then went and bought a distillery out of Georgia and sent 14 semi trucks to Covington. We opened the first distillery in Covington since Prohibition. We got the governor, Andy Beshear, who probably is going to be the Democratic ticket nominee, potentially, to come and cut the ribbon, because I'm friends with him. We actually did this. I did this label for him, and we called it the Spirit of Covington. And since we were the first ones, and then he actually like signed all the bottles and stuff like that, which is cool. Man. And then on the back, it was just talking about in honor of Kentucky's enduring legacy and craftsmanship, blah, 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 blah. So like I show this kind of stuff because to me, story matters.
Sure.
And purpose matters. It's not the product. I don't care what's in here. It's kind of the story and the purpose behind it that I really like. And I've always been more interested in things outside of the computer in general. I like hospitality. I like restaurants. I like hotels. I ken Durham to run in a hotel. So I want to do a kick-ass job for our clients. And so when they come back in and tour through, I want to make sure they check into Hotel Durham because they had such a good time on the previous project.
Yeah.
And I kind of run everything through this hospitality mindset anyways, because I think there's only so much human connectionness that you can do through a fucking computer sending files via Dropbox and Google Drive, right?
Right.
People like places and they like shared experience. And so I've always just kind of been more akin to that. So dude, I just accidentally built a distillery, and it's myself and 3 others. And we just, no one knows what they're doing. We're kind of the outlaws. We don't have a business plan. We weren't supposed to win awards. It's very much like Durham in that standpoint. There's a couple of different through lines though, that if you know, and now I'm going to spill the beans. Like the studio's taglines, Durham, distinctly different design studio. And then Wenzel is, what is Wenzel? Wenzel is embracing tradition, defining distinction. Like I just have all these D alliterations that I like to like kind of Easter egg through like Austin Dunbar proprietary projects.
Sure.
Where like there's like some little verbal back end tie that things. They're like, no, now people are gonna know. But yeah, man. And for me, like I think creativity goes beyond graphic design and being really human centric and I really care about people's emotions and feelings. And I'm in the business of making people feel good. And even if I don't feel good, and being able to extend outside of what may come of design, I think wasn't on purpose. It just ended up kind of snowballing into opportunities and people saying, hey, listen, you have to come to Missouri for this solar battery stuff. And as long as it doesn't break the bank and make us bankrupt, and if it helps people out, I'm all for it, man. So I'm more interested. I think I said it, but like some of the romanticism and the fantasism of like graphic design is maybe it's aged out of me a little bit. And my optics are on things that are bigger than a portfolio.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're building brands and
like I care about community. Like I care about the city. Sure. Like I care about people, and like design is such a niche, and it's just like so to me, like sometimes on like when graphic designers talk to graphic designers, it's just like this creative circle jerk, and it's like no one's solving anything. And
right.
I just feel like if you could just break away and apply your creativity and your talent to something else, start a small coffee company, start a small skateboard company, make something outside of yourself for someone else that isn't a freaking AI file. Like
right.
There's so much more things that matter than that. And I've just maybe lost the worship and tribute of the Glassjaw reference of the just graphic design in general. You know what I mean? There's just so much more.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah. So what you're saying is it's not that precious to you like things used to be, and I think that's a good thing, right? I mean, like again, like when you're a service provider, if everything is precious to you, you end up butting a lot of heads and not doing your job. And so when things don't become more precious to you, or at least you have hindsight, and about how lucky, honestly, we all are to be in this industry. Yeah. I feel like that goes hand in hand. So you weren't doing these businesses. Sorry, get back on this real quick. Like you weren't doing these businesses as a strategic move to like diversify your wealth or whatever, right? Like this was just
no,
your wealth.
No, like I
thing to say, but
no, because honestly, I'd be some of the.
I mean, solar sounds pretty amazing, man. To be in
well, solar. Solar's 100% a tax play, so I'll just tell you that right now. And because the energy grid in the United States is absolute bullshit, and so there has to be some private funds to build it up, and so I'm part of the group to kind of help do that. But it's kind of anti-sexy. But I've never come to anything in my life with some sort of strategic monetary gain. Like if there is gain, it it will be realized value in forever. Like I will maybe make a penny on this in 10 years, maybe, but it's not like I've not made a dime. The studio's not made a dime. It's all just been investment of time. There's been monetary investment, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not doing it for me. I'm not the smartest business person in the world. If I was, I'd be like a me economy. I operate in the we economy, and I kind of think about me last. And if this kind of stuff makes other people feel good, then that makes me feel good. And I'll worry about the bank account down the road.
Sure, man. I feel the same way. I mean, I feel like that's kind of,
well, that's you with creative workers union and everything else. Like it's a give. And sometimes, and you and I obviously talk privately, but, graphic design in general, whether you're running a conference or you're running a creative studio, is very much a thankless job, and you got to get used to it. And in the age of emotional sensitivities, and people aren't getting thanked enough, those are some of the people that I think we got to weed out, because get used to it. Like people, you might get a thanks on an email when you send them a bunch of stuff. Sure. If anything, you're going to be headhunting for that paycheck. If I made money chasing money, I'd have a shit pot of money and a lot more businesses. And because everyone's real quick to get their stuff, but they're not quick to pay for it. And I think a lot of people are just super soft. And I think creativity and graphic design in general in 2026 and beyond, it needs to get a little more cutthroat. It needs to get a little bit more real, a little bit more serious, a little more hardcore to kind of just weed out some of the creatives. And I think that's okay. You and I have rose-colored glasses that are jaded because we've worn them for so goddamn long.
Right.
And there is some, like, I call daddy truth that a lot of people just don't swallow, because they have this hyperbole fantasy of what creativity, what a creative person is, and their feelings and this, that, and the other. And to me, it's like, I don't want to like ruin the magic, but it's like the market doesn't care about you. So how are you going to exist? Sure. And the IRS, like, they don't care if you charge $1 an hour or $1 million an hour. It doesn't matter. We live in a make-believe world. This is not a real job. It is, but it's not like a hardcore real job. Like, we get to make things up for a living, right?
Right.
And you have to be super grateful and thankful for that, but you have to respect the craft, and you have to respect the trade, and you have to respect some of the people that came before you. Learn about graphic designers before you get in graphic design. A lot of people don't even know fucking anybody. Like even studios now, they don't know. And you're just like, what are we doing this for? Like, what are you looking at? You're just dumb thumbing TikTok? Like look at your peers.
This is the theme for the conference, right? It's soul over scale. And I think one of the things where things started going wrong was when you started looking at like engagement of these brands on social media, and it was getting into the millions, right? Or the hundreds of thousands, and everything in this world now seems to be about getting the most, the quickest, most attention, all of these things. And I think in the process, right, it's like, we could go back to design schools, right? Like almost every every college in the country has a design program, right? That shouldn't be the case. That's a whole culture thing. That has to do with leadership and, their teachers and all of that stuff. Like the success of the ethos is totally goes to the success of those programs and those kids and students entering those things. And then, businesses. I mean, I think about this all the time, and I had to explain this to my son. We may have even talked about this, but we went to Target the other day. We went in and there was a line that went all the way down the aisle. And I was like, hey, we were sitting in line. I was like, hey, when I was a kid, there were like, I don't know, almost every register had a person, whether or not there was a line or not. Like you would just get in and get out. It was super convenient. There wasn't any stock in the aisles. Like everything was super clean. Everyone was super nice, willing to help you. Like now, if you go to Target and you try to ask for help, most of the time that person will turn the other way and start trying to walk off or whatever. And again, it's not these people's fault that are working there. It's just that they've gutted these companies that used to have like a person at every register and people doing stock at a certain time that you wouldn't see it. Right. Again, I'm not above stock being out, and now, Target, to keep up with what they're doing, they have to have delivery just like Amazon. It's got to be free. It's got to be within 2 days or whatever. And then you have to, you get to drive up out of convenience and do all that stuff. And so we've just built everything too fast, too quickly, too big. We're all dealing with the kind of the impacts of that. And whether it's the design industry or retail or whatever, like small businesses are like suffering big time right now.
Sure, dude.
And that is one of the things that that I think is really, really tough. And I'm not an expert, so I can't really speak to all that stuff. But like, again, it goes back to like, we're just building things too quickly, without expertise, without passion, without conviction. And anyway, it just goes to kind of like the experience. Like, what do you want to have tomorrow? Do you want to have more Starbuckses in your community, or do you want to have better coffee with better people, better community, better business owners, better customer service, all these things that people that build these things with conviction and that really care about what they're doing or care about the hospitality of it. To your point, like, you care about experience, you care about holistically the hospitality of this. You care about basically making someone else smile, right? Yep. You care about taking care of their feelings and basically giving them a break, because you know how fucking hard the work is. There's a movie theater right down the street, and like, we went the other day with my son to watch Zootopia. And
dude, I went and saw that. I don't go to movies. Yeah. I went to the movies twice in one week, and we went and watched Zootopia, and it's actually kind of lullable. It's kind of fun, dude.
No, it's awesome, but it's like, I think the tickets were $15 a pop during the day. So that's 3 tickets. My wife and Andy and I, that's 3 tickets. That's 45. And then the concessions, which we try to do at
$450.
Yeah, man, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I'll again, this is another soapbox I get on, but I think there's so many things that we're going to have to return to, because now the idea is that Netflix took away the movie theaters. It's like, no, like $15 popcorn is what took away the movie theater for people, right? And $15 tickets. Like, you don't have to charge that much to do what you do. And anyway, I think it's something that I'm just kind of interested in, and the problems of scale when it comes to building something meaningful. And as a service provider, as someone who's kind of mentoring someone through building a business or a brand, helping them to keep that in mind while they're building their business, because you can give them the most amazing logo and the most amazing copy and story and polish that, but at the end of the day, their money or their eye is on how much money they're going to make from this business. That thing's not going to work. It's not going to impact the people the right way to keep that thing in business for the long term. And so I think that's what those are some of the things that I'm marinating on right now, as we kind of go through this transition of like, the economy is in the shittiest place right now that I've ever seen it in my life. And I made it through 2008. Mm-hmm. And I just, I'm just trying to figure out, how do we build back better, if you will. That's a bad reference, but
no, it's not. I'm actually, so my whole life's revolved around accountability and dependability. Like, if I have someone accountable or depending on me, I'm going to show up. Like, I don't have a gym membership to fucking Planet Fitness, because I'll never go. I have to go see my dude Jimmy 3 times a week because I'm paying to see him at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. That's just my life, right? And so,
but that's classic accountability, though. You know what I'm saying?
I know, but and so I'm saying that to say, when you said build back better,
well, that's like a Melania Trump thing.
I knew what the reference was to.
Okay, sorry,
but you're chill. But there's this company that's reached out to me. There's been a handful of people over the years, and long story short, want me to write a book. And I feel like you got to read a book before you write a book. And I was just like, I don't know about that. Well, long story short, there's this guy came around. He has this company, A, B, C, and D. And he was like, in 2025, you don't write books, you build books. And he has this whole thesis on like, you have so much already. You just need to compile and build. You don't sit down at the fire and write 20 pages a day. Like those days are gone. And it just completely flipped the whole thing. But he had to listen to me rattle off all kinds of bullshit. And, he was like, what's really interesting is you have this idea of I don't like the poetry. It's not sticky enough and punchy enough for me, but it's like build better environments. And he was talking about like the hospitality aspect of how like I run businesses and this, that, and the other. And it's not just like creative centered. It's a little bit more kind of umbrellaed over a bunch of different people, and how like just going back to human nature and taking care of that. And like you said, like making sure people feel good and putting a smile on their face. Like that should be like mission point, value point number one in any company, versus how much goddamn money can I make today off the backs of all the people that are buying here or working here. I'm not cut from that cloth, so I don't know anything about that. But yeah, dude, that's one of my my strange, because I have all of the time in the world goals for next year is to build a book.
Yeah, man, it's such a that what we're talking about is such an important thing, because there's opportunity always comes out of really tough times, right? Like you go through it, and then on the other side you have all this optimism and all of these critical thoughts that you can actually put into action. And so I think that this kind of, there's actually, I forget where I read this, but there was back in I think it was the late 70s, there was an economist that wrote a paper that was eventually published, but it said it was the start of that a company's primary duty was to make sure that the shareholders had maximum value.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not saying that the right way, but basically before that, it was making sure you're taking care of your customers and your employees. Well, as soon as shareholders got a hold of that information and CEOs got a hold of that information, and that just kind of got into the zeitgeist, it created, and it took a decade or so for that to really, a decade or two, frankly, until it was realized. But basically people started building businesses in different ways. And that's when you start seeing all this money going to the shareholders, no matter what, right? Like you're never going to see a stock tank the way it used to, just when the market would go bad. It's just not the way. That's why we're not living through, but probably why we're not living through a depression at the moment, is just because the stock market's going to be taken care of. And you're going to, in a weird way, like just, again, I'm no economist, but you're just like, you're looking at the stock market to figure out whether or not it's okay. Right. And the stock market seems to be doing fine, but so many people feel like, and are kind of experiencing a dynamic that it's not congruent with that.
There's just so much cultural chaos. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you vote for, what animal you vote for, whether it's an elephant or a dog, like it doesn't matter. Like it's a two-headed dog, and it just is what it is. The heads are different. The body's the same. And politics are not my kind of party, but it is what it is. And I think the bubble's going to burst at some point. I don't know if it's going to burst anytime soon, but we're a little bit in a pressure cooker. And at some time, I hope in a healthy way and not in a combustion way, some of the steam gets released.
Totally. And how can we start telling stories about the importance of these things that we care about, like hospitality, taking care of people, taking care of your customers, putting a smile on people's faces. I mean, here's what I find so shocking is if Apple releases an iPhone next year and no one can buy it, like what's Apple doing? Like don't the corporations in this country want us to all be doing well economically so that we can spend money on their shit? Yeah, right. Sure. And that's one of the biggest things that I can't understand at the moment, is that so many people are affected in so many different ways. But the gist is that, maybe we'll buy the iPhone for a year, but then we'll be like, you know what? That's not worth it anymore. So I'm not going to do that. I'll just let it get 4 years old, 5 years old, crack the screen, whatever. And so apparently, I guess that the math is not mathing for me. Like why, corporations don't want us to do better economically. They just want the people that own the stocks to do better economically. It doesn't math for me, but I just think people telling more stories about I think hospitality has a huge opportunity right now with the the fact that people are grinding it out so much means that if we did have money, the first thing we're going to spend it on is experiences, movies. You know, I mean, that's why Netflix and all of those things, I'm sure, doing gangbusters at the moment, is just because we're all escaping, right? But yeah, I think the world of people that are building new things and putting new things into the world. And I think someone like yourself, you know, thing I go back to all the time is like, you were working, I think you're proving this point, is like, if you know how to build the logo, the website, and you have enough conviction, you can put anything out there. But if you'd worked in whiskey or spirits or whatever for the longest time, you get to a point where like, hey, maybe I could open my own distillery, right? Mm-hmm. Or like you work in, you know, with hospitality and coffee restaurants,
bars.
Yeah,
it doesn't totally have to be vice. Everything goes through a vice filter for me. It could be I'm anti-vintage store, but just because there's too many of them. At least where we are, I was bitching about it during lunch today. Like, you can't walk outside without like crossing a damn new vintage store that just opened up. It's like, where are all these Goodwills popping up from that everyone's just like looting out of? But yeah, no, I think that your capabilities and your talents go beyond sitting behind a Mac. And I think there's more tangibility to you and to what you can bring to the world than just Command S in your way through life.
Yeah. And I think what you're going to build is more valuable than, say, someone who just saw a building and dollar signs popped up, right?
Sure.
Like, I think that's the biggest thing for me is like, how can we get back to a time where, like, I mean, you remember when we were kids, like there was a card shop and a toy shop and all.
Oh, sure, things. Skate shop and like
exactly,
a rolling rink, like
totally
these little
right,
micro
like
communities.
That's right, and some of these things still exist because of passion and money that was made or whatever. But like for the most part, they don't anymore. And so I don't want to live in that world. I mean, I'm not trying to be fatalistic or whatever, but like I want my kids and their kids to experience a little bit of what I had in the 80s, right? Like, and so how do we get...
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
Do your kids go outside?
They do. Yeah. It's getting colder here, as you know.
Sure.
Like
well, yeah.
But yeah, they go outside. And I'm trying to do better at, like, when I go outside to cut the grass, I make sure my kid doesn't just sit in and play video games, or that my older kid, the 14-year-old, helps, with the yard and things like that. But, one of my biggest goals is to have like after school. It's getting harder, but like after school, like make sure that my kid, before he comes home and like sits on a couch and gets too comfortable, is outside for like an hour, just running his ass off and doing everything he can. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I just, because that's good, because that's not the answer for a lot of people. I don't have video game girls. Like, we don't have a video game. Like, my girls ride horses and are addicted to makeup, but like but the phone is just crack cocaine. And
totally, man.
Like we'll be like, you got to give us the phone, and they're just hell bent. I've been in school, or they call it jail. I've been in jail. God. Okay. Well, fun fact, like, you don't have a choice whether you get to go to jail or not. You're going. And I have a choice whether or not you get that phone. And right now you ain't getting it. So we try to ration as much as possible. We're not rock stars by any means, but we try to break the girls out. And we kind of live at, like, overlooks the Ohio River, and we got woods in the backyard, blah blah blah. My parents bought them electric scooters. Like, that's been a game changer, because they just go out and, like, for us with bikes, they're on these electric scooters just hauling ass 3.5 miles away. Now, they have phones, so we can, like, find Mike's. There's no way I'd let them not have his phone, just because people are crazy. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just like, that's like their ounce of being a kid. That's kind of cool that not a lot of kids do, because they're just like basement dwellers, filming on their PS fill in the blank number. I don't know. Like,
I know. Well,
so I just answered the dad to dad question.
No, totally. Well, the problem with me is that when I was 5, I got a Nintendo Entertainment System, and I thought because a Switch has, like, basically a classic Nintendo and Super, they've got the old stuff. I thought it would be amazing to introduce my 5-year-old when he was 4 to basically the same thing I had when I was a kid, and that would help him be a little bit more like me and be creative and blah, blah, blah. But what I didn't realize is that very quickly, the moment he saw another kid who gets to play Fortnite or some other bigger game, like basically, now he's playing like Madden, which is crazy to me. But like, at the end of the day, like he wants to play Madden and the show and all these, he plays Minecraft, and he's just kind of turned into, when he's not outside, he's on the couch doing these things. And so we're actually kind of I know this is kind of crazy, but we're in a period of time right now where we're having to like scale back on some things that we thought were going to be good for him.
There's no handbook, and if there is, I didn't read it, on how to be like a successful parent, and every kid's different,
Well, I know now what it's like to be like, the other thing is like, what I know now is my mom and dad growing up, like my dad worked late nights and overtime, and my mom did too. And so we were at home to our own devices, all the time. Right. Yeah. And so we made bad decisions, but they were different decisions because there was still adventure. Like there was an article the other day about like, how video games are so different, now than they are then. And so it helped our brains develop in a way that I think is a bit more healthy and helped us, in the real world. But now everything is so different. But yeah, I think it's so easy for us. Like Star and I both work from home. We're both basically in it from like 8:00 to 5:00 every day, if not 6. And so when we've got kids at home, there's not much that they can do other than, entertain themselves until we can get outside and go hang out with them. We'll put a pin in this. We'll come back to it. But dude, this was great. I really enjoyed it. And I'm hoping, a lot of what you said early on and your candidness about like kind of dynamics that were all kind of experiences at the time and kind of ways that you're dealing with it and moving forward and, building out, a positive mental space, I think is really important. And I'm really curious as to how 2026 plays out, but I'm going to have more conversations in the following weeks about kind of like the realities of what's going on with folks. And I appreciate you being candid with me and sharing, as you always do. And I appreciate you also taking care of me last year when I was in a tough spot and needing, an identity for what we're pushing.
That stuff matters, man. I think I'll say this, there's a lot of us, but there's a lot of us in the game. There's a few of us that play, and there's very few of us that matter. And you're one of the ones that matter. I'm not saying I do matter. I'm just saying that the funnel is big, and then it gets real fucking small as it goes down. And so you really got to make sure you kind of check into the few and proud, if you will, and make sure they're doing okay. Because on the surface it may look like that, but like behind the scenes, it's probably a dumpster fire. And I just know that in my own life. And if I'm going through it, I'm not the only one. So I just try to do a good job of also letting myself know that too. You know what I mean? And yeah, dude. So I'm here for you, and I appreciate you wanting us to do all the Creative Workers Union stuff. I think all of it turned out pretty sweet. Hopefully, people enjoyed the work.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Man.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Later. Bye. Thanks for listening to State of the Union. If something we said stuck with you, please consider supporting the show and sharing this episode with someone who needs it. That's how these conversations move beyond the feed and stay sustainable. State of the Union and the Creative Workers Union are a self-funded organization. There are no sponsors behind this. If you want to help keep this going, you can support the podcast at creativeworks.co/podcast. If you want to go deeper, get early access to episodes, discounts on events and workshops, and find more meaningful ways to connect with other creatives in real life, sign up for our email newsletter and consider becoming a Beta Creative Workers Union member. Link in the show notes. Got a story about a win, a setback, or a shift that you're navigating in your own career? Send it to stories@creativeworks.co. I'd love to hear it and maybe share it on a future episode. State of the Union is produced by the Creative Workers Union, hosted by Josh Horton, and edited by Sydney Gladue. Until next time, keep showing up, focus on your craft, and remember, you're not alone.